my name is Alex Murphy. I am a Doctor Who scarf knitter, and I am here to give a tutorial on how to do the 12.5 join, as it's known. This join appears on the original scarf from halfway through season 12, all the way through the season 14 scarf, and it still exists on the scarf today. Because it's still on the scarf that we have today, we have very high resolution images of the join and can therefore determine exactly how it was made when it was made, which is great. So today I will be teaching you how to do that. Just a little history on this particular join. So this is the very beginning. On the season 12 scarf, the original pattern, you will see that there's a big block of gray. I think it's 23 ribs. The first stories of Tom Baker's time were filmed out of order from how they were released. When you look at Robot, which is the debut story, it has this gray block because that's the first time the scarf ever appeared on screen, so that's how it showed up. And then they filmed the Sontaran experiment next, and it still had this gray block. Either during Sontaran experiment or after Sontaran experiment, they cut this gray block out. And to my knowledge, we don't really know why. There was some idea that they wanted to shorten it because Tom Baker tripped and hurt himself on it during Sontaran experiment, but I think we've determined that injuring himself, he broke his collarbone or something. I think we determined that injury was sustained during a stunt and not because of the scarf. He was falling down a quarry or something. But at any rate, no matter what happened, they decided that the gray block needed to come out. So then they removed it, and then they filmed the Ark in Space. But of course, they reversed the order of Sontaran experiment and the Ark in Space. So if you look at the stories, you'll see in Robot, it has this gray block, and then the next one chronologically is Ark in Space, where this gray block is missing, and then the next one after that is the Sontaran experiment, and this gray block comes back. And then from then on, it doesn't have this, and it never, ever, ever shows up again, obviously, because they removed it. The other funny thing, and you'll notice here, in the scarf that I've done, knit these little fake rows to represent the old spot. One of the very odd things about it is that when they reattached, because they cut out this gray block, right, so then they had this part of the scarf and this part of the scarf. When they reattached this bottom half, they did it backwards. I'm sure that they were that some intern was halfway through fixing it, and he went, ah, crap. And they just left it like that. So literally, for Ark in Space, and then everything after Sontaran experiment, this bottom chunk of the scarf is actually backwards. Yeah, so that's the history, and now I'll show you how to accomplish the join. So these are the materials that you are going to need for this project. The first thing that you need is something to secure the stitches that you will be cutting around. So you're going to need something to secure these stitches right here on the purple end, and then these first stitches here on the green end. Because if you don't, when you cut and remove these gray stitches, all these stitches will then be live, and you risk dropping all of these stitches. I use circular needles to knit the scarves in the first place, and I just run the needle through, and I use the cord to secure the stitches. So I'm going to need two things to secure, so I've got two sets of needles here. What I used to do before I did that, I used to run floss through it, but I found that I like the interchangeable use better. So you need something to secure the stitches with. You're going to need a pair of scissors, and you're going to need just a needle. You're not going to need a bunch of needles like you see here. You're just going to need one darning needle, and that's all you need. So if you've got those things, you are set to go. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go about securing the stitches that will be live once we have cut the steek row. This isn't a true steek row. If you don't know what a steek is, then you can just Google it. It'll show up. But it is a dummy row of stitches that are intended to be cut out. So in a way, it's kind of a steek. So that's what I call it. So when you cut out your steek row, these stitches will become live. So we need to secure these stitches that we don't want to lose. So what I do with my needle here is I like to come at from the back side because you can really see much better. And from the bottom here, I like to just go in from the bottom of the stitch. Now, what you want to avoid doing here is you want to avoid taking this and then going down into this one and then going up into this one and doing that, because that's going to twist all of your stitches so that they don't match up. It'll be like every other stitch will be twisted and every other stitch will be oriented correctly. So it doesn't really matter if you go from down, if you go from above in, or if you go from below up, as long as once you start, you do it the same way on every stitch. So I like to start here from below up, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, there we go. So that's my last stitch there. You really want to make sure that you get your first and last stitches. Sometimes they can get kind of lost. So there we go. See, I've pulled it through. So now all of these stitches here are all being secured by my cord. And you're going to do that on both sides. So on the last tutorial that I filmed, I initially filmed it incorrectly and had to go back and sort of fix it, but it's sort of very choppy. So what I'm doing right now, I have a commission where I'm taking my season 12 and converting it into a season 13, which means that I need to make the 12.5 join. So I'm just going to fix it here so that there's no problem. So I secured off these stitches, right? And you're going to then take your scarf. This is kind of cool because you get to see what it looked like before. Take it, you're going to flip it over like this so that you're looking at the front side. And then what you're going to do, I personally don't recommend doing the color interchange right there if you're planning on doing this join because it's a pain in the butt to take out. But I guess in a way this is more screen accurate because this is what they actually had to do on the real scarf. So an interesting feature of the 12.5 join is that the yarn that they used to actually make the join was a row of green that they removed. So instead of securing off back here where the green actually ends, we're going to secure it one row back. Not one rib back, but one row back, so that we can remove one row and then use that yarn to make the join. So you're going to look at it from the front side here. So the stitches that you're going to want to bind off here is this one here. That's the one. And this one, not the top, but the bottom one on the front side. So what you're going to do, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to go in like that. And then come around. Do it again. And come around. Do it again. And like that all the way across for that row. So I've secured off all of these green stitches here on the front side. The next thing that we're going to do is the scary thing. For someone who's never done this before, you will find that the scariest part of it is that it's really not that hard to do. It should be a lot harder, but it's not. We're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut our gray blocks out. And if you're converting a season 12 into a season 13 and you have a big block of gray, I recommend cutting closer to the green because it will unravel easy back the way that you knitted. Trying to unravel it upwards towards the direction that you were knitting, it gets caught on the edges and it becomes a pain in the butt. You have to manually pull it out every time. So I like to cut up here if I'm doing that. And here we go. All right. So the cut has been made. the scarf has been separated, and the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to pull all of this excess yarn out. You don't need it anymore. Alright, so once you have finished removing all of the excess yarn, the next thing that you're going to do is make sure that you have removed your row of green, and you're going to take your darning needle that you've chosen. You're going to thread your green yarn onto the darning needle. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, make sure, if you're going through the trouble to be this screen accurate, make sure that before you start this, that your purple and green blocks are misaligned. So this purple and red, you can see this is the back side here, and up here, the green, this is the correct side. This is how it is on the real scarf, and if you're going through the trouble to be this screen accurate, please make sure that you're doing that. Otherwise, you'll be disappointed and you'll have to take it out and do it again. This is honestly the easiest thing you will ever do in knitting. I'm not kidding you at all. This is the easiest thing that you will ever do. All that you're going to do, it's so simple and it looks so cool, is you're going to take this, and you get your first purple stitch there on the end, and you're just going to run the yarn through that first purple stitch. Pull it through. And then you're going to go up here to your green stitches, find the next green stitch here, and you're just going to put your yarn through that one green stitch. You're going to pull that through. And then you're going to move back down to your purple, stick it into the next one, pull it through. And you're going to go back up here to this one up here, and that one you're going to pull through. And you're just going to continue alternating purple and green stitches like this for the rest of the length of the scarf. It is super, super easy. Here it is, all done. See, this goes all the way across. I've got the end of the yarn poking out here. So this is how it looks when you pull it through. After you've got your yarn all the way out the other end, what you're going to want to do is you want to take this end, and you just want to gently tug until you get that slight bowing on this end. You just want to make sure that there's no slack in here. So you don't want it, like, if you pull on it like that, like, that's not how it looks. But you take that and you pull it out just to the point where you get that slight bowing on the end. There. And that is your join. So all you're going to do now to finish it off is you're going to take this and you're just going to darn this up into here so that it disappears, becomes invisible. And that's the whole thing. It's that simple. And this is the 12.5 join, this season 12.5 join. And it is the easiest modification that you will do on the Tom Baker scarf. Alrighty, yeah, you can see it there. Alrighty. I hope you enjoyed this. Happy knitting.